Have you ever noticed that when everything falls apart, one person remains completely untouched by the chaos? While panic spreads through the room like electricity, they seem to operate in a different reality entirely. Their heart rate doesn't spike, their thoughts don't scatter, their hands don't shake, and everyone watching begins to wonder, what do they know that we don't? Most people assume these individuals are simply wired differently, that they were born with an advantage the rest of us will never have. But that assumption is wrong. The truth is far more interesting. Calm under pressure isn't a personality trait you're born with. It's a psychological skill you develop. And once you understand how calm people actually think, you can train yourself to think the same way. Today, we're revealing the hidden mental architecture of people who stay composed when stakes are highest. Staying calm under pressure is one of the most valuable skills a human being can develop. It affects everything: your relationships, your career, your health, your ability to make decisions that actually work. Yet most people spend their entire lives reacting emotionally to pressure instead of responding strategically to it. Here's what separates the two. Reactive people feel pressure first, think second. Calm people think first, feel second. This isn't poetic language. This is a measurable difference in how the nervous system processes information. And the fascinating part is that your nervous system is trainable. You can literally rewire the way your brain interprets threat, processes uncertainty, and responds to chaos. In the next 20 minutes, we're going to walk through 8 fundamental psychological principles that calm people have either naturally discovered or intentionally developed. By the end of this video, you'll understand not just why some people stay calm, but how you can become that person. And more importantly, you'll see that calmness is not the absence of fear. It's the presence of clarity. Let's begin. Welcome to Wired Logic, the place where we decode the human mind and explore the hidden psychology behind why people think, act, and change. We go beyond surface-level motivation to provide real-world facts and insights backed by research. Whether you are curious about the invisible laws you might be breaking every day or the weird habits that prove your brain is wired for deeper, multidimensional thinking, our goal is to help you understand yourself and the world a little better with every video. We dive deep into the traits of high IQ minds, the silent strength of loners, and the biological logic of habit transformation, from mastering your circadian rhythm to achieving the scariest levels of discipline. On this channel, we don't just share facts. We decode the patterns of human behavior and turn psychology into power. Stay smart, stay curious, and subscribe to start mastering the logic of your own wiring. Number 1. They control their interpretation of events. Here's a psychological truth that changes everything once you understand it. You don't react to events. You react to your interpretation of events. This concept is called cognitive appraisal, and it was first systematized by psychologist Richard Lazarus in the 1960s. His research showed something remarkable. Two people can experience the exact same situation, the same pressure, the same stakes, the same outcome, and feel completely different emotional responses. Why? Because they interpreted the situation differently. Let's make this concrete. Imagine two surgeons walking into an operating room for a complicated procedure. The stakes are identical. The challenge is identical. But one surgeon feels paralyzed by anxiety, while the other feels focused and energized. What's different? Not the situation, their interpretation of it. The anxious surgeon interprets the complexity as a threat. She thinks, if something goes wrong, it's a disaster. I might fail. People might suffer because of me. Her brain detects danger and floods her system with stress chemicals. The calm surgeon interprets the same complexity differently. He thinks, this is exactly what I trained for. This is where my skill matters most. The pressure is real, but I'm prepared. His brain detects a challenge, not a threat. This distinction is critical. Psychologist Rolf Gunther found that when people frame a stressful situation as a challenge rather than a threat, their cardiovascular system actually responds differently. Challenge responses include increased blood flow to the brain and heart. Threat responses include blood vessel constriction and cortisol flooding the system. Calm people have trained themselves to automatically reframe pressure as opportunity. They don't suppress their emotions. They interpret events in a way that generates different emotions in the first place. This is why the same deadline that panics one person energizes another. It's why the same mistake that devastates one person becomes a learning moment for another. It's why one person crumbles under criticism while another treats it as valuable information. The situation didn't change. The interpretation did. And here's what most people miss. Your interpretation is not automatic. It's a choice. Calm people have trained this choice until it becomes their default. They've practiced reframing so many times that looking for the opportunity in pressure has become their instinctive response. But there's something even deeper happening in calm people, something that separates them from everyone else. Number 2, they separate emotion from decision-making. When most people feel pressure, something predictable happens. Their emotions hijack their decision-making. Psychologists call this emotional flooding, and it's one of the most dangerous mental states you can experience under pressure. When you're emotionally flooded, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, has essentially taken over from your prefrontal cortex, where rational thought happens. In this state, you don't think clearly. You react impulsively. You say things you regret. You make decisions that make everything worse. Watch what happens with a calm person instead. When pressure rises, they experience emotion just like everyone else. Their heart might race. Adrenaline courses through their system. But they've developed the psychological ability to feel their emotion without letting it control their actions. This skill is called emotional regulation, and it's the foundation of psychological resilience. Daniel Goleman, author of Emotional Intelligence, identified this as the single most important factor in determining success under pressure. It's not about having no emotions. It's about having the capacity to acknowledge your emotions while maintaining executive control over your responses. Here's how calm people do this. They create a split awareness. Part of their mind is experiencing the emotion. Another part is observing the emotion. This might sound strange, but neuroscience confirms it's a trainable skill. When you practice mindfulness meditation, for example, you're literally training this observer perspective. Brain imaging shows that regular meditation changes the structure of the prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for executive decision-making. Calm people have developed this observer mind. When pressure hits, they think something like, "I'm feeling fear right now. That's my nervous system detecting a threat. The feeling is real, but I don't need to act on it." This tiny psychological distance is enough to maintain clarity. The person who hasn't trained this skill goes straight from emotion to action. They feel fear and immediately act from that fear. They feel anger and immediately lash out. They feel shame and immediately collapse. They're hijacked. But the calm person feels fear and asks, "What information is this emotion giving me? What should I actually do here?" They've installed a gap between stimulus and response. And Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived Nazi concentration camps, understood this gap better than almost anyone. In his book, Man's Search for Meaning, he wrote, "Between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response." Calm people have expanded that space. They've made it large enough to fit a conscious decision between what happens and how they respond. This is not passive acceptance. It's active mastery. But this mastery requires another fundamental skill that calm people have developed. Number 3, they accept what they cannot control. One of the most exhausting ways to live is to spend your mental energy fighting reality. Yet that's exactly what most anxious people do. The stakes are already high. The situation is already difficult. But then they add a layer on top. They fight against the fact that the stakes are high and the situation is difficult. They think things like, "This shouldn't be happening. This is unfair. I shouldn't feel this way. Why is this so hard?" They're experiencing double stress. The stress of the situation plus the stress of resisting the situation. Calm people do something radically different. They accept what they cannot control. This principle comes directly from Stoic philosophy, one of the most psychologically sophisticated frameworks humans have ever developed. The Stoics, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, understood that much of human suffering comes not from external circumstances, but from resistance to those circumstances. Epictetus taught that some things are within our control, our effort, our attitude, our attention, and many things are not, other people's reactions, outcomes, external events. The path to tranquility, he argued, is to invest your energy only in what you control and accept what you don't. Modern resilience research confirms this completely. Carol Dweck's research on growth mindset, Angela Duckworth's research on grit, and numerous studies on emotional resilience all point to the same finding. People who recover fastest from adversity are those who accept that adversity happens, that they can't always control the outcome, but they can control their effort and their response. When a calm person walks into a high-stakes situation, they're not secretly hoping they won't feel afraid. They accept that fear might show up. They're not secretly hoping the situation will be easy. They accept that it might be hard. They're not secretly hoping they'll perform perfectly. They accept that they might make mistakes. This acceptance is not resignation. It's not giving up. It's the opposite. It's psychological clarity. Once you accept what's real, you can actually work with it. Once you stop fighting the fact that you're nervous, you can use that nervous energy. Once you accept that you might fail, you can focus on doing everything possible to succeed. Researcher Kristen Neff has found that self-compassion, the ability to accept yourself even in failure, is one of the strongest predictors of resilience. Ironically, people who beat themselves up about being anxious actually become more anxious. People who accept their anxiety without judgment find that it decreases naturally. Calm people have made peace with uncertainty. They've accepted that they can't control the outcome. And that acceptance paradoxically gives them more control, because their energy goes into what they can actually influence rather than what they can't. But accepting what you can't control only works if you're crystal clear about what you can. Number 4, they focus on the next step. One of the primary ways the human mind generates panic is by trying to process everything at once. You think about the stakes. You think about the possibility of failure. You think about the consequences of failure. You think about what others will think. You think about all the things that could go wrong. Your mind gets overwhelmed. Your nervous system detects that you're overwhelmed and becomes more activated. And suddenly you're in full panic mode, paralyzed by the sheer scope of what you're facing. Calm people break this pattern. They practice what might be called radical narrowing of attention. Instead of trying to hold the entire challenge in their mind at once, they focus exclusively on the next step. This is not avoidance or denial. It's strategic focus. Ryan Holiday, in his book Stillness is the Key, describes how Marcus Aurelius used this principle while leading Rome. Rather than being paralyzed by the massive scope of running an empire, he would focus on his immediate, concrete responsibilities. This mental discipline allowed him to remain clear even in crisis. But being clear about the next step only works if you've done something else first. Number 5, they have experienced discomfort before. This is a principle that most people never consciously recognize, but it's one of the most powerful determinants of who stays calm under pressure. Calm people are usually not calm because the situation is easy. They're calm because they've experienced difficulty before. They've been through uncomfortable situations. They've survived things going wrong. They've made mistakes and recovered. And each of these experiences taught their nervous system something crucial. Discomfort is survivable. This principle is called stress inoculation, and it was developed by psychologist Donald Meichenbaum. The metaphor comes from medicine. When you get vaccinated, you're exposed to a small dose of the pathogen. Your immune system learns to recognize it and respond to it. Then, when you encounter the real thing, your body already knows what to do. The same thing happens psychologically with stress. People who have experienced pressure and survived it develop a kind of psychological immunity to panic. Their nervous system knows, we've been here before. It was uncomfortable, but we made it through. This is why experienced professionals under pressure often look eerily calm. A trauma surgeon who's performed thousands of procedures stays composed during a crisis not because crisis is easy, but because crisis is familiar. The uncertainty that would paralyze a novice is simply the landscape they've learned to navigate. And here's what's important. You don't need to have experienced the exact same situation to benefit from this principle. If you've dealt with any significant pressure, any real discomfort, your nervous system has been trained. You've built a reference point that you survived. This changes how your brain interprets new threats. Psychologist Angela Duckworth found that people with grit, the psychological quality that allows them to persist through difficulty, consistently report past experiences of overcoming obstacles. These experiences taught them something fundamental. If they could get through that, they could probably get through other difficult things too. The implication is profound. Calm under pressure is not a gift that some people are born with. It's a skill that's built through experience. Every time you face something difficult and get through it, you're literally training your nervous system to stay calmer the next time. This is why seeking discomfort, Doing hard things before you have to is one of the most powerful psychological investments you can make. When you voluntarily go through challenging experiences, you're building resilience that pays dividends every time you face involuntary pressure later. But experience alone isn't enough. You also need something else, a particular way of thinking about uncertainty. Number 6. They think in probabilities. Most people who panic are engaging in what cognitive psychologists call catastrophic thinking. Something starts to go wrong, and their mind immediately jumps to the worst possible outcome. A presentation starts badly, and they think, I'm going to bomb this entire thing. A test question seems hard, and they think, I'm going to fail the whole test. Someone criticizes them once, and they think, everyone thinks I'm a failure. There's a pattern here. They're treating possibilities as certainties. They're collapsing all the uncertain outcomes into one, the worst one. Calm people think very differently. They think in probabilities. This is a mathematical way of thinking about uncertainty. Daniel Kahneman, the Nobel Prize-winning psychologist who revolutionized our understanding of decision-making, spent decades researching how people think under uncertainty. His key finding was this: people consistently make worse decisions under pressure because they ignore probability. They get seduced by low-probability catastrophes and high-probability positive outcomes, and their thinking becomes distorted. But calm people have trained themselves to think like statisticians. When something starts to go wrong, they don't think, everything's ruined. They think, something went wrong. Based on my experience, what's the probability this situation still has a positive outcome? Then they think about all the outcomes that are still possible, not just the worst one. Let's say you make a mistake in a presentation. Your heart rate spikes. Your first instinct might be to think, I ruined it. My career is over. But if you think probabilistically, you might think, I made one mistake out of 30 minutes of material. What's the probability my entire presentation is now worthless? Maybe 5%. What's the probability I can recover from this mistake? Maybe 90%. What should I actually do right now? Your thinking becomes clearer. Research by Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis, pioneers of cognitive therapy, found that people who suffer from anxiety consistently overestimate the probability of negative outcomes and underestimate their ability to cope. Training people to think more realistically about probabilities, to recognize that the catastrophe they're imagining might be low probability, significantly reduces anxiety. Calm people have trained this probability thinking until it's automatic. They experience fear and uncertainty just like everyone else, but they don't escalate that fear into certainty about catastrophic outcomes. They hold multiple possible futures in mind simultaneously and recognize that most of them aren't the worst case. But thinking about probability is a cognitive skill. It still requires something more fundamental underneath. Number 7. They control their internal dialogue. Listen to what's happening in your mind right now. There's a voice. It's narrating your experience. It's making judgments. It's predicting outcomes. It's evaluating how you're doing. That internal dialogue is running constantly throughout your day, and most people never question it. Calm people are obsessively aware of their internal dialogue. More importantly, they've trained that dialogue to work for them rather than against them. Here's what happens with most people under pressure. Their internal dialogue becomes their enemy. They think things like, I'm going to mess this up. I always mess up under pressure. Everyone's probably judging me right now. I'm not good enough for this. That voice is not helping. It's sabotaging. It's like having a critic whispering in your ear telling you that you're failing while you're actually trying to perform. Calm people have completely different internal dialogue. They think things like, this is hard. That's exactly why I prepared. I'm going to focus on the next step. I've been through difficult things before. Their internal voice is a coach, not a critic. This is not positive thinking in the naive sense. It's not pretending everything is fine when it isn't. It's the difference between an accurate, helpful internal monologue and an inaccurate, harmful one. Cognitive psychologists call this cognitive reframing. You're not changing the facts of the situation. You're changing how you're talking about those facts to yourself. Albert Ellis, founder of rational emotive behavior therapy, revolutionized psychology by showing that much of our emotional distress comes not from events, but from our irrational thoughts about events. He developed a specific technique. Whenever you feel disproportionate emotion, identify the thought underneath it. Examine whether the thought is actually rational and helpful, and if it's not, replace it with something more accurate. Calm people do this unconsciously. When pressure hits and they notice negative self-talk starting, they interrupt it. They ask, is that actually true? Is that thought helping me right now? What would be a more accurate way to think about this? The effect on performance is measurable. Research on self-talk in athletics found that athletes who maintained positive, instructional self-talk under pressure performed significantly better than those whose self-talk became critical and catastrophic. The athletes weren't lying to themselves. They were talking to themselves more accurately and more helpfully. But controlling your internal dialogue is only part of the picture. There's something that ties everything together. Number 8. They detach their identity from failure. This is perhaps the most sophisticated psychological capability that calm people develop, and it's what separates people who recover quickly from setbacks from people who are destroyed by them. Most people have fused their identity with their performance. If they fail, they feel like a failure. If they make a mistake, they feel defective. If they perform poorly under pressure, they feel weak. Their self-worth is on the line. And when your self-worth is on the line, suddenly you have enormous pressure to perform perfectly, which increases anxiety, which decreases performance. It's a vicious cycle. Calm people have separated this equation. They recognize that their performance in a particular moment is not a measure of their worth as a person. This distinction is subtle but transformative. Psychologist Carol Dweck's research on mindset found that people with a fixed mindset believe their abilities are fixed. They think, I'm either good at this or I'm not. This leads to fragile self-esteem because every performance is a test of their fixed identity. But people with a growth mindset believe their abilities are trainable. They think, I'm developing at this. I'm not good at it yet, but I'm learning. This creates robust self-esteem because a failure is just information about their current development, not a judgment of their fundamental worth. Calm people have adopted this growth mindset at the deepest level. When they fail, they don't think, I failed, therefore I'm a failure. They think, this attempt didn't produce the result I wanted. What can I learn from this? How can I adjust? The failure becomes de-identified from self. This has a powerful effect on nervous system arousal. When your identity is on the line, your threat detection system is hypervigilant. It's constantly scanning for signs that you might fail and be exposed as defective. That vigilance itself creates anxiety. But when you've detached your identity from outcomes, that hypervigilance becomes unnecessary. You can afford to be relaxed because your fundamental worth is not being tested. Research on shame versus guilt makes this distinction clear. Shame is the feeling that you are fundamentally defective. Guilt is the feeling that you did something wrong. People paralyzed by shame often can't recover because they believe something is wrong with them. People with guilt can move forward because they recognize it was their action that was problematic, not their fundamental being. Calm people feel guilt when appropriate, but they've inoculated themselves against shame. They know who they are at the core, and a single performance or failure cannot change that. This brings us to the final element of how calm people think. Number 9. They understand emotional contagion. Here's something remarkable. Emotions are contagious. When one person panics, that panic spreads. The anxiety radiates outward, and suddenly everyone around them is infected with it too. You've probably experienced this. You walk into a room and immediately sense the mood. Someone's nervous energy affects you. Someone's calm affects you too. This phenomenon is called emotional contagion, and neuroscience has found a mechanism for how it works. Mirror neurons in your brain automatically activate when you observe someone experiencing an emotion. Your brain literally mirrors their state. That's why watching someone panic can make you panic, and why being around calm people can make you calm. Calm people understand this principle, and they use it consciously. They recognize that their calmness is not just for them. It's a resource they're offering to everyone around them. They know that the most effective way to calm a group is to exemplify calm yourself. This is especially powerful in leadership situations. When a leader remains calm under pressure, they're not just managing their own emotions. They're creating a psychological container that allows others to think more clearly too. Daniel Goleman's research on emotional leadership found that leaders' emotional states disproportionately affect team performance. A calm leader literally makes their entire team more intelligent and capable. Calm people have recognized this, so they invest in their own calmness not just as a personal skill, but as a leadership tool. They know that how they manage their emotional state affects the emotional state of everyone around them. But none of this matters if you haven't done something fundamental first. Number 10. They practice calm before they need it. This is the most important principle of all, and it's why calmness can be trained by anyone willing to do the work. Calm under pressure is not something you develop when you're under pressure. It's something you develop beforehand. You practice it when the stakes are low so that it's automatic when the stakes are high. This principle comes from every field that requires performance under pressure. Navy SEALs don't train to stay calm in combat during combat. They train during preparation. Athletes don't practice mental toughness during competition. They practice during training. Musicians don't develop stage presence during their concert. They develop it during rehearsal. The reason this is so important is simple neuroscience. When you're under genuine pressure, your cognitive resources are limited. Your system is in a state of heightened arousal. You can't consciously solve new problems or learn new skills. You can only execute what you've already trained. This is why calm people have cultivated practices that build calm before they need it. They might meditate. They might visualize scenarios where they need to stay calm and mentally rehearse staying calm. They might deliberately expose themselves to manageable levels of stress to train their response. They might use breathing exercises. They might practice reframing techniques. They might spend time in nature or engage in activities that naturally bring their nervous system to a state of rest. These are not luxury activities. They're essential maintenance. Staying calm under pressure is impossible if you haven't trained your nervous system to be capable of calm in the first place. Research on mindfulness meditation has found that regular practice literally changes the structure and function of the brain. Your amygdala, the threat detection center, actually shrinks with regular meditation practice. Your prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making center, grows stronger. You're not just meditating for the moment of peace it provides. You're rewiring your entire threat detection system. The same is true for any deliberate practice of calm. You're making an investment in your future capacity to stay composed when it matters most. Synthesis. How these principles connect. Let's step back and see how all of these principles work together. A calm person under pressure is not a person without fear or stress or uncertainty. They're a person who has developed a specific constellation of psychological skills. They've trained their interpretation so that pressure reads as opportunity. They've developed the capacity to feel emotion without being hijacked by it. They've accepted what they can't control and focused on what they can. They've narrowed their attention to the next immediate step. They've accumulated experience overcoming difficulty. They've trained themselves to think probabilistically rather than catastrophically. They've become obsessively aware of their internal dialogue and learned to make it helpful. They've detached their identity from outcomes. They've recognized how their emotional state affects others. And they've made the investment to practice calm before they need it. None of these skills develops accidentally. None of them is a personality trait you either have or don't have. Each of them is trainable. And collectively, they create a person who can move through pressure with clarity, effectiveness, and composure. The most important insight is this: calmness under pressure is not a luxury. It's not something only exceptional people can develop. It's a skill, and skills can be learned. The calmest people are not born different. They train themselves to think differently. They've recognized that staying composed under pressure is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you're not afraid. It's about developing your mind to the point where you can remain clear, strategic, and focused even when circumstances are chaotic. It's about understanding that pressure doesn't actually change what you need to do. It just makes the doing more important. When you watch someone move through a high-stakes situation with composure, you're watching the result of hundreds of small decisions they made beforehand. Decisions to practice when stakes were low. Decisions to examine their thinking patterns. Decisions to build resilience through experience. Decisions to train their nervous system. Decisions to invest in the psychological skills that actually matter under pressure. And here's what that means for you. Everything those calm people have developed, you can develop too. You have the same brain. You have the same capacity for growth. The only difference is the training you've done and the decisions you're willing to make. Which of these habits do you think is the most powerful for staying calm under pressure? Is it your ability to reframe situations? Your capacity to separate emotion from action? Your willingness to accept what you can't control? Or perhaps something else entirely? I'd genuinely love to know what resonates with you. Drop your answer in the comments below. And if you found this exploration of how calm people actually think valuable, subscribe to Wired Logic for more deep dives into the psychology of high performance, resilience, and how your mind actually works. We have more videos on emotional regulation, how to build psychological resilience, and the neuroscience of decision-making under pressure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.